Okay, Emmy fans, if you want to predict who's going to win the Emmys this year, you better pay attention to a change in the voting patterns of the past few years that, quite frankly, is bedeviling all of us. And we know this better than just about anybody in the world. That's because these Gold Derby editors are Daniel Montgomery, Susan Wloszczyna, Marcus James Dixon, I'm Tom O'Neill. And Daniel, you first here. Explain what I'm talking about. We're talking about the voting change 3 years ago, where in the old days it used to be that you benefited from being nominated against a co-star. But these days, not so much. Or is that true?
Well, yeah, what happened was we used to look back at Emmy history and see, like, the Sopranos women would be nominated against each other, Lorraine Bracco and Edie Falco, and Edie Falco would win. All the Modern Family people nominated against each other, and one of them would usually win. That was because in the old system, there was a ranking of the nominees. So if, you were a big fan of Modern Family, you could take the 4 nominees from Modern Family and go first, second, third, fourth, push everyone else down to the bottom, and one of the Modern Family actors is likely to win. Then they switch to a plurality vote, and the difference there is that you're just picking one winner out of an entire list of nominees. So if you have, say, 4 Game of Thrones actresses nominated or something, then you have to choose one or the other or the other or the other. That amount of support divides, and so you might see an actor from another show that has all the support concentrated in one place get that win instead.
And one more thing. In the old days, it was a case of just about 50 to 70 people in a category voting. We're talking about acting categories here. Now, all members of that branch vote, so all 2,000 plus members of the TV Academy's Actors Branch vote. In the old days, it was about 50 to 70 who would volunteer to watch a sample episode from every single nominee and then do this ranking process that Daniel just talked about. And we often found whoever had the strongest or most dynamic episode won. So the Modern Family case, for example, would be if you're Eric Stonestreet, the voters are actually seeing 4 Eric Stonestreet performances up against, let's say, somebody from whatever the other comedy series is. It's amazing, for example, that John Cryer won for 2.5 Men in those years, right? So because size matters, quantity matters, and it often helped if you were not in the Sopranos case. Let's say, for example, Elaine Bracco, because she had a more subordinate, less of a demonstrative role on the Sopranos. There would be Edie Falco, giving one of her blockbuster turns in that episode submitted by Lorraine Bracco. So all of a sudden that benefited, Edie Falco so much. Marcus, what about this year?
And I was going to mention one other thing, Desperate Housewives. Remember when all the Desperate Housewives were nominated together? You had this theory that Felicity would win. Am I remembering right? Because
no, I was on the Marcia Cross thing, and what I hadn't taken this into account. Felicity Huffman pulled off an upset, and it was because Marcia Cross submitted a really good. Felicity Huffman's episode was okay. It was the pilot. It was kind of boring, but boom, Marcia Cross was quite not savvy enough to submit this really great episode, more dramatic for Felicity Huffman as opposed to the comedic one she submitted, and it was for Best Comedy Actress. It threw the vote, but now, anyway, Marcus, keep explaining. It's different now.
This year, there's a lot of categories with potential vote splits, but I think one in particular is one people should pay attention to, and I've kind of been ringing the bell on this one for a few weeks now. It's Best Actress in a Drama Series. You have Sandra Oh and you have Jodie Comer, both nominated, both very deserving. Ask some people who love Killing Eve, they're going to say Sandra's the best. Ask other people, they're going to say Jodie's the best. And frankly, I've been hearing a little more Jodie votes just, on the street. But both are going to get votes. We know that. Sandra Oh won the Globe for this show. She won the Critics' Choice. She won the SAG Award. She didn't win the Emmy last year. So maybe this year, in addition to all of her Grey's Anatomy love, she may finally win. But Jodie Comer is going to get a lot of votes. So if this happens that both ladies split the vote, you could see a potential surprise in this category. And I think the surprise could be Laura Linney for Ozark. Other people think maybe Emilia Clarke for Game of Thrones. The other nominees are Robin Wright, Mandy Moore, Viola Davis, we could see something shocking happen here. And don't be surprised if it happens. You need to remember, oh yeah, Gold Derby warned me that this could happen. But
that's right, baby.
There's other categories too. I mean, pretty much every category has a vote split situation that we could talk about here.
Well, that's right. And starting with supporting actresses in comedy, there's Alex Borstein and Maren Henkel. And then Alex won last year, but it'll be interesting to see if she can beat her co-star. And then in Fleabag, there's Olivia Colman and Sean Clifford going against each other. And in supporting actors in a comedy, there's Henry Winkler, Stephen Root, and Anthony Carrigan. And then you mentioned Sandra and Jodie, but also for the drama lead men, there's Sterling K. Brown and Milo Vitiglio. But the real game of votes is in the category for the supporting ladies for Game of Thrones, because you have Maisie, Lena, Gwendoline, and Sophie Turner there. And even with, there's, I think this is supporting the Saul actors are going against each other. And then Game of Thrones, there's 3 guys too, I believe. So,
well, all right, Susan, let's stick with one of the Game of Thrones ones. Let's recall that you had the best score among all the experts last year.
It wasn't much of a score, but it was the best.
So, how did you do it? I mean, you didn't go into all this theorizing, then you were kind of new to the Emmys. If you could get back into your headspace right now with whatever your strategy was to pick the right answers last year, what would you pick for Game of Thrones drama supporting actors, where we have 4 of them? What would you do as a voter, and what do you think is going to happen here, and why?
Well, I think, what do I have here? Let's see. Let's make up. Well, right now, I have, I'm sorry, Laura Linney. Because
no, that's the wrong category. That's lead drama actress. I'm talking drama actress.
Oh, I'm sorry, supporting. Yeah. Okay.
So are you going with Maisie?
Julia Garner getting it.
Oh.
So you think the vote split will happen in this category, where the 4 Game of Thrones will possibly
especially this category. And, there's only 2 people who aren't from Game of Thrones, and the other one's Killing Eve. I think I read somebody picking her somewhere on our site.
Yeah. And what's interesting about this category in particular is that poor Game of Thrones had this happen to it a couple of years ago. A few years ago, when they had Maisie nominated, Lena nominated, and Emilia Clarke back when she was in the supporting category, they were all nominated in the same year. They lost to Maggie Smith for the last season of Downton Abbey. Maggie Smith was the only nominee in that category for Downton Abbey that year. So it's easy to see that a vote split might have taken place.
But a Maggie Smith thing, though, is different, though, Daniel, right? That was a Maggie Smith thing happening there. It wasn't the dynamics of mathematics in a vote.
It was a little bit of both. I could imagine, I mean, by that time, the sort of Lena Headey is overdue narrative had started to pick up. And that was the most nominations Game of Thrones had ever gotten in that category. It broke in actors who had never been nominated before, so the actors branch clearly loved it. And we saw that none of them could win when they were up against each other. And that's not the only time that it's happened in Emmy history, and not the only time it's happened to Game of Thrones in Emmy history. So it's something that show in particular needs to watch out.
All right, so Marcus, take it away. The Game of Thrones year, Kit Harington, we thought it was the big Jon Snow year. We thought for sure he was going to win. And what happened? How the hell did it?
He really should have won this. That was his first nomination, and he was the talk of the town. Jon Snow, the season of Jon Snow. And if he was alone in that category, I guarantee you he would have won. But all the Game of Thrones fans split the vote, Peter Dinklage got a lot of votes. Kit Harington got a lot of votes. And what happened? A complete shock happened on Emmy night. Ben Mendelsohn won. He wasn't even there. He looked at his Gold Derby odds and said, oh, Kit Harington's got this. I'm not even going to show up. And he ended up winning. And Kit Harington, I'm so sorry. Like, you brought your family over from England because you thought you were winning the Emmy. Ireland. And it was so disappointing. But I think this year for supporting actor, even though 3 Game of Thrones guys are nominated, I don't think this will be a vote split situation. And by that, I mean, I think Peter is so far ahead of the other 2, Alfie Allen and Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, that Peter is going to get all the votes. This isn't a situation like Killing Eve where both ladies are going to dominate. I think Peter is so far ahead of those other 2 guys that he's going to win easily. And the other 2 guys may be in like 5th and 6th place.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about the Game of Thrones supporting actors is that, they're not the only ones at risk of splitting the vote. You've got Giancarlo Esposito and Jonathan Banks both nominated for Better Call Saul.
And
that
both strong.
Never won a single Emmy, so the fact that they're trying to get the show's first ever win in any category against each other, they might just siphon away from each other. And, so Peter Dinklage could lose votes to his co-stars and still win because his competitors have to worry about vote splitting too.
Susan, let's stick with your predictions. Who do you have currently for? Because what I like about deferring to you on this is a drama supporting actor. I'm calling you on now. Is what I like coming to you about this for is maybe we're all so full of BS here, and we just need to follow our instincts, which is I think happened for just whatever reason drives your vote.
Oh, I don't know. I have to say I don't have time to watch that much TV, so I just kind of go with my gut sometimes. But last year was easy. I just picked Mrs. Maisel in every category, even if she wasn't here. But it's not going to be so easy this year. I think there's more competition for her. So
who is your prediction for supporting actor this year?
For comedy or drama?
No, drama.
Oh,
we're going to go over it. Stay there. Give it to me both. Give me drama.
Dinklage I'm going with because I like him.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, that may be perfectly valid, by the way. What about, let's switch over to comedy supporting actor, because this is where it really gets interesting. Read off the nominees for us.
Okay, you got Alan Arkin, The Kaminsky Method, Tony Shalhoub, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Tony Hale for Veep, and then 3 Barrys, Henry Winkler, Stephen Root, and Anthony Kerrigan.
What's your prediction currently?
I am kind of drawn to both Tony and Alan, but
only get one vote, Susan.
Okay, I know. I put Alan Arkin in because he's sort of like Maggie Smith. And he never won an Emmy. He's been nominated 4 times. He never won. Okay. So there you go.
And it's a show about acting and all that kind of thing.
Right. Well,
you know who I think is in trouble in this category is last year's winner, Henry Winkler. Last year he didn't have any co-stars, to go up against, and he had this huge overdue narrative, and he won. One of the easier predictions of the night, I think, last year. This year, he's up against Anthony Kerrigan, who was really good on Barry, and he is up against Stephen Root, who was just phenomenal in Barry. I would say Stephen Root's role in season 2 was almost a co-lead role to Bill Hader. They had just increased this role so much. He's such a standout.
And Winkler didn't have that much screen time this year compared to last year.
Yeah, compared to last year, he wasn't featured as much. It was mostly the Stephen Root show this year. So
is this a Maggie Smith situation, Marcus? In other words, is this a case of where there was just so much love for Maggie Smith? I mean, come on, she's Maggie Smith. She's the one who says that catty thing you're thinking in your mind, but she says it out loud in a room full of very snooty people.
I think it's a Maggie Smith situation, but the Maggie Smith is Tony Shalhoub. I think he's going to win. And he's going to ride the coattails of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I just have winning everything like Susan did last year. I think it's going to win pretty much everything this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have Shalhoub also because And I have Schlub also because, he sort of has everything going for him. He's an Emmy darling. He won 3 times for Monk in the lead acting in a comedy category. He's the only nominee for Maisel in this category, and we know how much voters love that show from the fact that it won 8 awards last year. And he's got the Barry split. Kaminsky Method, Alan Arkin could win, but that show didn't perform as well as we thought it might have, didn't get in for Best Comedy Series. So I feel like I don't think it's a lock for Tony Shalhoub, but I feel comfortable with predicting Tony.
Well, what does it mean when there's a lot of actors from one show? Does that mean
that's what we're trying to figure out.
Thank you, the series itself. Does that mean usually there's more support overall?
Yes, and there's another pattern we need to pay attention to. Chris Beecham, our managing editor, brought this up the other day, which was last year almost all of the acting nominees for series, their shows had their shows nominated. So in the case like Kaminsky Method for Alan Arkin, was Chris's point, maybe he's not as formidable as we think. It is a case like when he won his Oscar, it's the Veteran Achievement Award. And we often see it, especially in these supporting categories, right?
Mm. And if you look at people...
anything here.
You'll see some nominees that maybe the average person doesn't know who they are, like Anthony Carrigan, to name one, Sarah Goldberg, to name another. The reason these people get nominated is because their shows are so beloved. And if you're a voter, you can vote for as many, if you're an acting voter, you can vote for as many actors as you want. There's no limit.
During the nomination process, yes.
During the nominations, you can choose to nominate 200 people if you want. Now, only the 6 or 7 highest vote getters will get in, but that's where you see, the love for Barry comes out so strong that they just mark every Barry actor they see on the ballot.
Yeah, and especially in a case where it's a show that doesn't necessarily have the biggest A-list names. So like someone like Alan Arkin, sometimes you'll see Emmy voters, they love movie stars. They're sluts for movie stars. Let's be honest. And so they'll see a name like Alan Arkin, beloved Oscar-winning actor, and they can check off his name. But when you have lesser-known stars from a show also getting in, like Sarah Goldberg and like Anthony Carrigan, who aren't as much household names, that shows you that voters are specifically paying attention to that show in particular. That they actually watched it. That they're actually fans of the show because they picked out the people who you wouldn't necessarily think would be name checks.
Okay, I want to quote the people who really know what they're talking about at Gold Derby, and that is our forum posters. Here is a wonderfully bitchy quote from Montana 82. The other day they were discussing this in our forums, right? And this is what he writes. People are just talking out of their ass at this point in regards to the actress, in other words, for the Killing Eve co-stars. He goes, there was no vote split last year in supporting actor, guest drama actor and actress, and numerous other categories in this new system, i.e. Dinklage over Nikolaj, Sterling over Milo, Dowd over Samira, Samira over Jones and Jen Rett, Ron Cephas Jones over Gerald McCraney, and when McCraney beat his co-stars. You could easily say that the anti-Sandra Oh vote could vote split between Comer, Clark, Wright, and Linney. Marcus, what do you say about that?
He brings up a lot.
Talking out of his ass.
No, he brings up a lot of good points. And for every legitimate vote split that I think is a vote split, there's another one that you think, oh, well, that doesn't fit the pattern. So, I mean, this, as we said at the beginning of this is only a few years old, this trend that we're noticing. So there's going to be outliers, and there's going to be, examples where it didn't happen, examples where it did happen. So we're still learning, but I think this year will be a defining moment where if Sandra Oh doesn't win, which my heart really wants her to win, we know why. If she doesn't win on Emmy night, this is why she didn't win.
Well, you brought up an interesting point the other day, Marcus, which was about BAFTA, right? What happened there?
That was interesting because, Sandra, all these awards she won in America, she was not up against Jodie Comer, but the one time they go up against each other was the BAFTA TV Awards, and Jodie Comer beat her.
Yeah, I think the vote splitting is very, as Marcus said, it's very early in this new system, which makes it really difficult to figure out because, I mean, you have a year like last year, almost every acting category was won by an actor by themselves. So you had last year, 2 years ago, Ann Dowd beat Samira Wiley for Drama Supporting Actress. The next year, Ann Dowd is up against two other Handmaid's Tale actresses, and Thandie Newton surprises. She wins. She's the only nominee in that category for Westworld. Matthew Rhys for The Americans beats the two This Is Us actors for Best Actor. So we saw it happen a lot, and then we see it not happen a lot, and it's really we're all still trying to do the math on when it matters and when it doesn't. I think it's clear that it matters in some cases, but there are other cases where voters are just so in the tank for one particular nominee over the others in terms of co-stars that they manage to win easily. But it's hard to tell exactly which cases those will be, who will draw more support than we're expecting from a front runner if they're on the same show. This is one of those things where I feel like we're still collecting data as Emmy scientists. We're still trying to refine our hypothesis, and I don't think we have a perfect conclusion yet.
Well, Joy Sang would disagree with you, the very smart fellow editor of ours who would say, "Oh no," and simplifying the whole thing, oversimplifying things. Let's be clear here. Under the old system, if you're nominated against a co-star, you win. Under the new system, if you are, you lose. In general, is what Joyce would say, and it's said often here. But let's stick with this drama actress category while we're at it, because it's not just Jodie versus Sandra Oh. Susan, I want your thoughts on this. It's also Laura Linney, who has won an Emmy for every single role that she's been nominated for. And we have to be careful here because she did lose for one of her big C performances, but otherwise has won everything. Susan, she's a film star, Oscar nominee, beloved in the industry. Does the film star Laura Linney trump these TV stars, Sandra Oh and Jodie, just because she's a film star?
Well, Robin Wright.
Enable camera.
Okay. Oops.
We're using a new video system, everybody watching this, so we're getting used to it.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Well, Robin,
enable camera, Susan. I don't see you.
You don't see me. Okay. One more time. There. Okay.
Okay.
No, Robin Wright surprised me that she got in, because I think, the show might not, after Kevin Spacey's problems, I don't know if people are that enamored with it, but they put her in there, and that surprised me. And that means something, I think.
You think she could win?
Maybe, because it's the last season of the show too. I don't know.
Oh, she's not gonna. Robin Wright, she's not gonna win. I think Laura Linney is the sneaky candidate here. Do you think Laura Linney could win?
Has she won before for this role?
No. She's won for every single role she's ever been nominated for.
Oh, okay. Well, then I think that's why I put her on top, because.
Oh, you've got Laura Linney on top.
Yeah.
Julia Garner and Laura.
Putting out there, even Viola Davis is on there too, movie star wise, but she might have won before, right?
She won.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of cancels her out. So, and they seem to like this Ozark show a whole lot.
Yeah, the highest rated original drama on Netflix right now.
It exploded in nominations in season 2. It got in for drama series. It didn't get that last year. And I think she's so beloved in this industry. I'll tell a quick story. I was doing an interview at our Gold Derby offices here in Los Angeles, and I was interviewing somebody who ended up not getting nominated. And when this person left the office, Laura Linney was coming up, and this person just went over to her, ran over to her. "I love your show. When's it coming back?" That is the kind of love she gets from her fellow actresses in the industry. Imagine what voters watching her think of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Laura Linney ranked second. I have Sandra Oh in the top position because I feel like if there's a vote split, which there still might be, the fact that Sandra Oh has, she's overdue from her Grey's Anatomy days. She was nominated last year for Killing Eve. She's on a roll with all these other awards that she's won. So I feel like if voters are torn between the two, they might just lean that way because sort of it's her turn in a way. So I still have Sandra Oh on top. Laura Linney is second place to me. I think she's very close. Like if a vote split happens, she's going to be the most likely beneficiary of that. I also think we need to not underestimate Mandy Moore. She plays the
come on.
No. She plays the most sympathetic character in this show. She was snubbed for the first 2 seasons, but so was Tatiana Maslany, and then she was nominated for the first time for season 3 and won.
No, she lost the first time. Tatiana.
No, she did not. She won the first time she was nominated, and then she was nominated twice more and didn't win.
I think you're wrong.
I think I'm right.
I think she lost one and then came back the next year because, anyway. But so Daniel, I'm very disappointed you're not going on the because I often tease Daniel about being very overly empathetic to what the critical consensus is out there among the blogosphere TV critics. Jodie Comer's the cool kid now. I mean, 2 ago it was Sandra Oh, but now you're going to get crucified by your buddies if you don't do this Jodie Comer thing. Why not?
I think Jodie Comer is fantastic. I think she could win. And actually, I did look it up. Props to you. I did mistake that. Yes.
Why do you ever question me, Dan? Give me oh my! Have I ever been wrong?
You're wrong every other time. But still, it is still the case that Tatiana Maslany was snubbed for a couple of years. She came in. She eventually won. So Mandy Moore is still in it. The critics are really behind Killing Eve and Ozark, but we've seen that the Television Academy and actors in the industry in general love This Is Us. It wins an acting award every year so far. It has like the vast majority of its nominations and wins of all its Emmy nominations and wins have been for acting. She doesn't have a co-star to go up against, so I really do think Mandy Moore is in it. I don't think she's likely, but honestly, I think this is like a 5-way race, to be honest.
No, it's not. Take Mandy Moore out of there. Mark, who is this year's Ben Mendelsohn? Because he didn't have it. He was dead that season, right? He was just appearing in a couple of flashback scenes in his show. So the fact that he beat Kit Harington and Peter Dinklage and all these grandstanders in the category was surprising. I think it happened because he has the reputation as this auteur, as this indie film darling, actor type. And so just the love of him and the respect for him helped him to win there. So where in the co-star situation this year, where could that prize come?
So you're saying if there's a vote split, which non-person who's not in the vote split could come up and win?
No. Yes. Well, hold on. What is my question? I don't even know.
Because I would say, looking at our odds, someone that's in almost dead to last place is Stephen Root. That's wrong. He should be way higher on people's list. Right. He could win this thing, and consider bumping him up. Anyone who's watching this.
Because it's a show about acting. And Stephen Root also has an overdue narrative, like Henry Winkler did. Henry Winkler, at least he'd been nominated before. Stephen Root has been a TV veteran for decades. This is his first ever Emmy nominations.
Yeah, he's more like Joe McCraney, right? Working for 4 decades, never even getting nominated, and then his first nomination, he could win. It's possible.
And Stephen Root's been working it in around town too. He even came to the Gold Derby Emmy party. Thank you.
Well, I have news here on Tatiana. She didn't win in 2015. She did win for 2016, and then she was a nominee for 2018.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. Never again. Yeah, interview. So, Susan, take us through something. Stay on, Susan. Hit enable cam. Come back. Share some of your other predictions, just in other categories.
Okay, hold on.
I want to know
steal from you since you're the one who beat us last year.
I want to know if Susan thinks Mrs. Maisel is going to win again.
You know what? I don't think.
Oh,
no, I have it. I have it for series. I have Julia Louis-Dreyfus though in first place, and Phoebe, and then Rachel. I'm not so sure about Rachel winning again. So I put her down there.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus has never lost for Veep. She's won every season.
Yeah. But there's always a first time, right? Yeah.
There is. And what are your big long shots that you're predicting for winners currently? That
how long?
That you're breaking from the
Breaking from the pack. Let's see. Probably not many.
I, by the way, while Susan is doing this, I beat all the experts with the best Emmy predictions for nominations, but that rascal Marcus James Dixon beat me among the editors. He's not one of the editors' experts tribe, but
That's right.
So that was well done, Marcus.
For me, the hardest category is limited series because I think they're all rather, there's no bad ones there, And my heart goes to Fosse Verdon, but I think it's down to When They See Us in Chernobyl going in.
Marcus, come back and crow a little bit about your predictions here. Really, you deserve it. So how did you actually beat me and I beat all the experts, you scoundrel, you?
I did not make any last minute changes. I refuse to do it because whenever I do that, I end up regretting it the next day. And I did not go out on a lot of limbs. I mostly went with, I tried to put myself in their head. Okay, if I'm a voter and I like Veep, I'm going to pick these 3 people from Veep. If I'm a voter and I like Fleabag, I'm going to pick these people from Fleabag. Of course, I didn't go overboard as much as the voters did. They picked people I'd never even considered would get in. So
we didn't even have some of them in our prediction summit.
Right. For When They See Us in particular, I think, Daniel, how many nominations for acting? 8 maybe?
8 acting nominations, which is the second most for a limited series in history.
And I think we maybe had 6 of them in the prediction center.
We had 6, which is impressive. Like, we had Anjou Ellis at the prediction center. You could have predicted her if anyone had thought that was going to happen. And I loved her performance. So I'm thrilled that she got in. But yeah, we didn't have Asante Black for supporting actor and Marsha Stephanie Blake for supporting actress. Those were the 2 we didn't have, and no one asked us to put them in there because nobody really saw those.
Marcus, did you do anything different this year from your normal procedure? Here's what I did. Here's I actually won my own game since I'm the editor of the site. Is I tried something different this year, and what I did was I was looking over the candidates. I didn't predict, oh, this one's going to get nominated in this one, which you would normally do, of course. I did it the opposite. Oh, I just went through the list of candidates. That one's not going to get nominated. That one's nominated. Forget him. And so it ended up working.
I don't think I did anything especially different this year, except for, in the past I would be changing predictions up until the last minute. Oh no, he's not going to make it. She will. Not that show, but this show. And I told myself I'm not doing that this year. I'm just going to accept my fate. Based on, I think the last change I made, I put in Billy Porter and I took out somebody else, but it ended up that the person I took out also got nominated. In other words, whatever change I made didn't affect my score because it was a wash. Yeah, it canceled each other out. But it's funny, I didn't even have Billy in my predictions for the longest time to get nominated. Oh. Now I think he's going to win.
Right. I agree. Okay, any thoughts here? Daniel, wrap us up here. Take us home.
I think if there's one thing I've learned for these nominations, we're talking about multiple actors getting in on, for these shows and potentially splitting the votes. I think we're actually seeing kind of a reverse situation where having multiple actors from a certain show, you have a better chance of getting nominated, but maybe a harder chance of winning. Because as Marcus said, you can check off on the nominations ballot as many actors from as many shows as you want to be nominated. If you like a particular show, that increases the chances of everybody from your show getting in. So, if we had to do this again next year and we had someone like a show like Fleabag that we think is going to do well, and we think Olivia Colman is going to get in there, well, Sean Clifford would have a better chance of getting in too. If we think they like When They See Us, don't just think it's going to get 1 or 2 acting nominations. They're going to check it up and down the board. It's going to get in everywhere. So I think that's the one thing that I'm going to look forward to next year in terms of predicting the nominations is to predict a lot more multiples on shows that look particularly strong. like 2, 3, maybe even 4 nominees in a given category, because I think it's, the strength of the show determines the strength of the acting contender at this point.
And a final wrap-up thought here to everybody watching and listening to the video, listening to the podcast version. There are 2 changes in the voting we're talking about. First is, it used to be 50 to 60 people would vote in a category, in an acting category, and they would watch a sample episode submitted by each of the nominees as an example of their best work, and usually the strongest episode won. And if you were nominated against a lot of co-stars, that helped you because they're actually seeing 2 or 3 of your performances instead of just one. That's one change, in case we're confusing you. The other change is the plurality vote, where it's no longer the ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the nominee with the lowest score wins. It's now just checking off. And that's how Tatiana Maslany won. I believe perhaps the first time she was nominated, it was the old system. And so, but the second year, or when she lost, the first year when she was nominated, and then when she won, it was a plurality vote. And why that matters, and why that probably happened, I think we would all agree, is that Tatiana Maslany can win a plurality vote. There are enough people who are actually paying attention to that show on an ongoing basis. Her cool factor, she had won tons of critics awards, but she couldn't win a consensus vote because everyone wasn't watching this BBC America show. And why that matters now is, guess what network airs Killing Eve? BBC America, baby. Does it matter? It's up to you to tell us. You are the people who are casting your votes, I hope, and making predictions at Gold Derby for the winners. All scores are tallied. This is your big chance to prove to the experts that you're the real expert. You know better than we do. And quite frankly, all of us know, many of you do. So give us your predictions at Gold Derby now, and you can keep them all the way up until the day of Emmy winners announced.